Now let's look at something called CSS gradients. CSS gradient represents a special type of image which is used for creating a gradual transition between two or more colors, and it is a form of image data type, which means that they can be used anywhere an image could be used in the backgrounds. So let me give you an example, first of all, where image can be used in backgrounds. So let's say this div is there. Let's remove this color, this is not needed, but let's put some border for now. So I know that this is my container, so that if I increase its height, I am well aware of it. So let's increase the height to, let's say, 600 pixel, or maybe somewhat less, 400 pixel. Yeah. So now you can see that this div container I have, in which hello world is there, I have set its height to 400 pixel, and its width is like width of the whole container, means parent container, which means that the page whole page width, that is its width. That is fine. Now what we are trying to do is that we are trying to understand, can we say set some something like background image or something. So background image will come to it, but I'm just trying to show you that how to set something like background. So you can use URL. URL is a function sort of thing, CSS function, and you can give path of the image. So let's say dot slash images. Okay, so it should be dot slash images slash, let's say, HTML5. So all of this we will come back. Actually, basically this thing is just one image, but why this image is repeated and all. But you can understand that if the size of the image is such that it can fit more images, then by default it repeats itself and fits the whole container. Now those details are immaterial. The point is that in this container, which was I just now said that its height is 400 pixel, and this is the border of that. In that thing, you can see that the background is set with an image. That is what where I was saying that wherever an image can be used, that place a gradient can be used. So when I say this statement, gradients can be used anywhere an image could be used. For example, in backgrounds, I meant by this only. Just now, after some time, we will see that we can replace this image, and instead here we can use a gradient. That we'll see. But first of all, let's understand that what is gradient. So gradient is basically, as we discussed, that it is a gradual transition between two or more colors to create image like effects. Now they can be of three main types in CSS. Something called linear gradient, this is the most popular one. There is something called radial gradient, which is like okay, you can know, but it is like not that much used. And there is something called conic gradient, which we will not discuss here, but definitely you can look it up at some Mozilla documentation or somewhere, but mainly this is also not used. The most popular one is linear gradient, and we'll be focusing too much on this. Okay, so let's start with this linear gradient. Linear gradient is basically just a function which creates a progressive gradient, CSS gradient, but the transition is linear. We will come back to that. What do we mean by linear transition? And the transition happens between two or more colors, which means that at least two colors are needed. And these colors, where among which the transition is happening, they are called color stops. So you can pass more than two colors also. So which means that you can pass more than two color stops also, but at least two color stops are needed. Obviously, right? We have to go from some color to another color. So at least two colors will be needed, and then we'll see that we can use third, fourth, fifth color also. So the basic syntax is something like this. As I said, anywhere where image can be used, we can use linear gradient also. So let's try it. See, here we are having a background image. Let's remove this and use a linear gradient function. And what is the syntax? At least two colors you have to say. Okay, so let's say I say purple and red. Purple and red. These are the two colors. If I refresh this, then you see something like this effect has come. What does this mean? This means that purple to red, gradually it is transitioning. You can see. So this is the effect which you can create very easily using this linear gradient function. As we mentioned, we can specify more colors also, right? So for example, let's say yellow and green, let's say. So let's see firstly with three colors how it changes. So you see purple to red to yellow, okay, and you can write any colors, 4, 5, 6, how many colors you need you can write, unlimited number of colors. It's just that whatever colors you write, purple to green to yellow to purple to red to yellow to green, see, purple to red to yellow to green. So this type of transitioning is possible using linear gradient. Now by default, as we mentioned, that the transition is happening from top to bottom and the transition type is linear. So when we are saying that the transition is happening top to bottom, which means that purple to red to yellow, purple to red to yellow is happening from top to bottom. So this is the default behavior. If you don't, just now we will see that we can specify this, we can change this behavior by setting the direction. But by default, if you don't do anything, then the behavior is from top to bottom. So top to bottom. Now, in order to customize that direction, we can use something like to right, to left, to top, to bottom, something like that, or to top left, something like this we can write. So for example, this thing by default is equivalent to 2 bottom, which means that if I simply write here the first argument, if I write something like 2 bottom, then nothing will change. Why nothing will change? Because that was the default behavior. See, nothing has changed. However, instead doing purple to red to yellow in this direction towards the bottom, I could write something like to, let's say, right. Then we'll see that now purple to red to yellow, this thing is happening from left to right. And in a similar fashion, you can write to left, to bottom we have seen, that is the default behavior, and to you can write to top also. So if you do to top, then you can see that from now from bottom to top it is becoming purple to red to yellow. Okay, for simplicity just remove these many colors, just have only two colors. So let's say purple and yellow. This should be fine. Okay, so purple to yellow, this transition between two colors is happening to top, purple to yellow towards top. You can see to top. However, as we can see that we can write something like top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, these sort of things we can write. So let's try something like, let's say top right. Okay, this is just a standard syntax which you can write just for directions. So you see that right now purple to yellow was happening to top, now it should happen to top right, which means that this direction of linear gradient was from bottom to top, but now it should be to top right, to top right. So it should be in this direction. If you refresh this, then you will see that in this direction it is hanging, like sort of a diagonal way, right? Purple to yellow in this top right direction, towards top right. Okay, so this is done. Now we can also give a specific angle. So if this is not sufficient with you and you want more customization, then you understand, like these are like, okay, just 4 axes and then 4 more, so 8 directions. What if I want more customized direction? Let's say I need 35-degree something like this. Okay, so this thing you can also give a particular direction also. You can give, you can see, you can give let's say 135 degree. So this, you will see, this is a unit of CSS where you can write degree and number. There should be no space in between. So 135 DEG. Now you see these directions are changing. Okay, that is fine. But let's understand what is this 0 degree. So what is this 0 degree? See, 0 degree, we are seeing that purple to yellow is happening from bottom to top. Okay, now this is opposite, right? While nothing is used, we saw that the direction was from top to bottom. You see, top to bottom. But with 0 degree, we are seeing that it is bottom to top. So the idea is this, that 0 degree means that, let's say there is an arrow and that is pointing towards 12 o'clock. That is 0. And then as you increase the angle, so let's say 90 degree, then it will become towards right. So if you make it 90 degree, then it will be towards right. Towards right means purple to yellow towards right. And you can have negative angles also. So minus 90 if you do, or you could have done 270 degree, whatever. So then it will be to left. So purple to yellow towards left. You understand, right? As we understand, so by default 0 degree will mean that to top, which means that 90 degree will be to right, and we can have negative angles also. And if we want to simulate the to bottom behavior, to bottom, then what we will do? We should do 180 degree, right? Because 0 degree was towards to top, I want to bottom. So if I do 180 degree, or we can use minus 180 degree also, in both cases it will be to bottom, purple to yellow, okay, to bottom. Okay, that is fine. Another thing is that we can fine tune the location of these color stops by providing one or more locations as a percentage or absolute length for each of the colors. What it means is that when I am setting a direction, that is fine, I am giving colors, that is fine, but what if I want to set that, where is that color? Where is that color means, see, let's say purple, red and yellow. Let's say these 3 colors are there. Now you see that, okay, and let's keep it simple. Let's keep it 90 degrees, so it's towards right, so that explaining will be better. Okay, so see, purple to red to yellow, this thing is happening. But see, by default what is happening is that it is starting with purple, ending with yellow, and red is in between. Red is in between, right? What if I want to change that behavior? I don't want red at perfectly in middle. Let's say I want red slightly shifted. Let's say somewhat around 25 to 30 percent of this. So right now it is in 50%. It is mid. I want to add, let's say 25% or something like this, and or 30%, and then the transition from red to yellow should happen in that area, which means that I want to transition from purple to red in 25% area, and in rest of the 75% red to yellow. I want to do that. So for that, the syntax is that you can put after color, you can put percentage, that where you want to put the actual middle point of that color. So let's say I want to put red at 25%. If you refresh, then you will see that nothing will change, just the shade of red will slightly shift towards left. See, which means that now the midpoint of red is here only. So purple to red is happening at here, and from in the rest 75% red to yellow is happening. Understood? Okay. Another thing is that you can give two percentages also. What does 2% means? And it can be pixel also. Just let me clarify what is pixel. So pixel is that you can particularly say that actually at what point I want. So rather than 25%, you can say that I want it after 250 pixel, which means that from left I want 250 pixel or 260 pixel. This is what I want. So you see slightly shifted. So around 250 pixel from left, the midpoint of red is there. So that is what it means. However, you can also have two percentage or 2 pixels. Both can be percentage, both can be pixel. One can be percentage, one can be pixel. It's just that you have to say that where the thing is that. But right now, when two values are mentioned, then we say that throughout that whole region, that color will be there, which means that if I say that 260 pixel to 360 pixel, you understand, the syntax is something like this, that instead of one position I mentioned two position. Okay, which means that right now at 260, earlier at 260 pixel or 250 pixel, this red came, and immediately from that point of time again the linear gradient from red to yellow started. But I don't want that. I want that from purple to red it should happen in 260 pixel. After that, from 260 to 360, nothing is changing. From 260 to 360, only red is there. Only red, solid red is continuing. No gradient is happening. And after 360, the gradient again back to yellow. Start that thing. So if we refresh that, then you see this thing is happening. Is that from purple to red, red has come. Now red is not changing, it is still red till here, till 360, and then it is again changing back to. So for simplicity, and that's why percentages are useful, because rather than having absolute values you can give percentage. So let's say I give 25% and I give 75%, which means that from left till 25% one gradient, and then in the last from 25 to 75 red, only red will be there. In the last 25% again the gradient from red to yellow will happen, and you can see clearly this. You see purple to red in the first 25%, after that the whole 50% from 25 to 75 only red, and again in the last 25% red to yellow, that gradient is happening. So that is the meaning of giving two values. By default, the start location of the first color stop is 0% and the end location of the last color stop is 100%, right? Which means that you might say that, okay, I am giving this values, two values for middle one. Can I give these two values for the first one or third one? Like, that's not needed, right? Why? Because let's say I do it 50%. So right now I'm doing something like this, but now I want to change purple. I don't want to start purple from like 0%. I want to start, I want to keep the purple from 0 to 25% solid, and the gradient from purple to red should happen only in 25% to 50% range, right? Then I can put here 25%. So you see that from 0 to 25%, the this thing, the purple color is solid, there is no gradient, and from 25% to 50% there is gradient, and then again from 50 to 75% there is solid red, and then in the last 25% there is gradient. So what I wanted to say, that here you could have written something like 0%, like from 0% to 25%, or and here you could have written whatever, like that 200%. And all these things are not needed. See, I refreshed and nothing changed, because these things are implicit, that if you give two values, let's say 50%, no 50%, because it is starting from 75, let's say 85%, right? Which means that obviously the yellow from 85 to 100 is solid, because the last point is 100. And similarly, if you don't give 0% here, then it definitely means that by default it is starting from 0, and it is going till 25, which means that it means, if simply purple 25 means it is starting with 0% and going till 25%. So that's what is mentioned here, that by default the first color stop is starting at 0, right? However, you see something like 120% here. What does that mean? See, it means that, let's say everything is fine, let's refresh, and you see that this yellow is here. But what if I don't want, I want this gradient towards yellow, but I don't want full yellow till here. Let's say virtually outside the box, let's say somewhere after some time the actual 20 is actual yellow is there, and I just need the effect from here to that point, and whatever can come in this background that I need. I mean something like this, that what if I put something like 120%? This will mean that from 75% the gradient will start from red to yellow, but it is not trying to make full yellow till 100%. It is trying to make full yellow to 120%, which means that if I just now refresh, then here the yellow shade will be slightly lighter. See, slightly lighter, right? Why? Because now I am not trying to reach yellow, rather my yellow is now coming after some time. So for simplicity, let's keep it 110 only. So you'll see that almost yellow is coming, but the full yellow is reaching at 110%, and that's why at 100% I want just this shade. So you can use these tricks to create different shades using linear gradient. This is a pretty handy function, and JavaScript developers will not need that much, but definitely those people who used to design things in CSS, those who are designers, they will definitely use these things for some styling. Okay. Anyway, now let's see something like that. Okay, we saw some gradient stuff. Can we create hard lines? Hard lines means no gradient, just hard lines. Now you might think that if I want to create hard line, then why I will use gradient? That is fine, but just I wanted to show you that using the syntax just now we discussed, we could also create hard lines. How? See, just now we said that, let's say we are changing gradient from red to green from this percent to this percent. But if both the percentages are same, both the percentages are same, then what will happen? Then the basically gradient is still happening, but it is happening in 0 pixel. Like there is no place for gradient, so it will look like a solid color. So my point is something like this. See, so you see from 0 to 25%, purple is there, then 25 to 50% red is there in gradient mode, and then 50 to 75 solid red is there, 75 to 100 solid yellow is there. What if I make this percentage, this 25 and this 50, I make same? What will happen? Which means that from 25 to 50, that is the place where actual this linear gradient, this shading effect is happening, the transition is happening. If I make that same, let's say I make it 33% and 33%, both is like same vertical location, right? Then what is happening is that you see that the transition started and ended at the same time, and that's why it looks like a solid transition. And same you can do here also if you want, right? So if you make let's say make this red 66, then from 33 to 66 solid red is there, and then 66 to this thing 100, again gradient will be there. See, again gradient will be there, but I don't want that. I want yellow to start at 66 only, so I can put 66% here. Then what it is doing is that red is from 33 to 66%, and at 66% only the full yellow has started. So we did not get any place for changing the gradient, and that's why it will look like solid line again. Okay, and again this whole thing I'm just giving an example for this direction. This direction can be like any direction. You can put it 180 degree, understand? You can put it like any angle, it does not matter. So all types of effects you can achieve. It's just that you have to understand that how this transitioning is happening. Okay, now there is another thing is that by default we are saying that transition is happening evenly. What if we don't want even transition? What if we want uneven transition? For that, let me give you an example with simple two colors. Let's say purple and yellow. So this is what we were seeing. Now you see that okay, purple is here, yellow is here, and transition is happening. Where is the midpoint of the transition? The midpoint of the transition is 50%, right? Which means that from here till here it has evenly transitioned. What if I don't want that even transition? I want uneven transition, which means that let's say the transition from purple to yellow, half of the transition should happen till here, and then in 25% only the half of the transition from midpoint to this should happen. What if I want something like that? That is known as color hint. Okay, and that can be given as a percentages between two colors. Okay, so I can write a percent here. So for example, I can write 75%, which means that the transition from purple to yellow, the midpoint of that transition should be 75%, not 50%. Okay, so here the midpoint of transition is 50%. When I refresh, then you will see that this purple thing shade will be shifting towards right. See, it has shifted towards right. Why? Because the transition has happened till 75%. The half of the transition has happened till 75%, and again in 25% the rest of the transition has happened, and that's why this effect is coming. Okay, this is called color hint. And then we will see that gradients support transparency and therefore can be stacked on top of each other. Okay, so first of all, let me tell you that how things are stacked. First, let's try to understand in terms of images. Let's try to understand in terms of images rather than this. So let's comment it, and let's try to have a simple background image with URL, and let's say /images, and let's say HTML5 images there, right? This thing is there. Now I will show you that instead of this I could use another image, which is, let's say, images / this CSS3. You see CSS3, which means that this is a different image and this is different image, right? Now if you use both of them one after another, any but as we discussed in CSS rules, that whatever comes last, that will be given more priority. So see here CSS3 is given later, that's why it is given more priority. Here HTML5 image is given more priority because it is coming later. So HTML5 it is changed. What if I don't want that? I want both backgrounds on top of each other, right? And to tell you the truth, actually these images are transparent background, which means that all these part you are seeing, let me show you here. So let's say I set background color here by some light shade, let's say pink, and then I refresh, then you see that this part which is like outside the image part, that is becoming pink, which means that the background is visible through the image, right? This is image, everything, the whole background thing is an image, right? But still if I specify background, in fact it is a good practice to always specify background color even if you are specifying background image, because first, till the time background images is not loaded, your background color will be shown and that will be a good user experience. Second, if there is some error and this image fails to load, then your background image will be used as a fallback. So because of those reasons, you should use always background color. Okay. That aside, what we were discussing is that I don't want HTML5 or I don't want CSS3 only images. I want both of them stacked one on top of each other. Now you see that if I use both, obviously they are separate rules and they will overwrite each other. There is a syntax which I was saying, which I was showing here, that you can use comma separated images, then they will be stacked on top of each other. Okay, so you can use something like this, that rather than this you use a comma, okay, and then you can use this indentation, anything you can do, that is fine. But the point is this, that I used a comma and then like both in the both and you can obviously you can use write both of them in the same line also, one line also separated by comma, that is fine. But the point is that, just for clarity I wrote in 2 lines, but the point you understand that I am using CSS3 and HTML5 images both. Now let's see what happens. See, HTML5 CSS actually both are over each other, on top of each other. So basically they are overlapped. And what is the rule? The rule is that whichever image comes first, that is on top of the stack, which means that from last it will start. So the last image is this thing. So firstly it will put that. On top of this will put the second last, and then on top of that it will put the most recent one, and whatever is the first one, that will be at the top, right? So if I switch this, let's say I use something like this, then what will happen? CSS3 will be there and HTML5 will be on top of this. This will be reversed. See, still these are jumbled, which means HTML plus CSS5 both are on top of each other. But now you see that HTML5 has come on top. Why? Because HTML5 image is the most recent one. Okay. So that was just the idea of stacking images on top of each other. But here we are discussing linear gradient. Then what does this mean? This means that, and we already discussed that linear gradient can be used anywhere where a image can be used, which means that if an image is available, that is fine, but if we are trying to create a linear gradient ourselves, then that will also work fine. So let's see, I have a single image, let's say HTML511 only, okay, and after that apart from, rather than using a second image, I use a comma and then I use a linear gradient. So let's use the same linear gradient. Okay, and refresh it. You see what has happened. See, what has happened is that first it put this image, and let's simplify it, no need of this hint, color hint. So what has happened is that I have a purple to yellow this background, this thing, that is fine. And firstly I put that thing because this is second. On top of that I put this thing. On top of this I put this HTML5 thing, and that's why it is visible. Now why the why the other background image, this thing, other background image means this linear gradient part, why this is visible through HTML5 image? Because this HTML5 image has a transparent background, which means that anything which is like image part, that is obviously visible. Apart from image part, whatever rest of the area is there, that is transparent in this image, and that's why that layer of gradient is visible. If I do it other way around, then we will see, if I do other way around, then we will see that it is not the case. See, HTML5 is gone. Only this thing is visible. Why? Because obviously the browser firstly put this. On top of this, it put this. But this has no transparency. This has no transparency. This is a pure solid color purple to solid color yellow. This thing is there, right? So how we will see anything, right? We will not see anything. Now what we can do, we can use transparent colors. We know that CSS supports transparent color, so why not use? So let's say rather than purple to yellow, right, or let's say okay, let's say rather than purple to yellow, we are using purple to transparent. Okay, so firstly, without this second one, firstly try to see only this thing, that how does it look. See, it is looking like this. Why it is looking like this? Because background image is pink. See, if I make this background image, let's say what, lime, some color other, then see that lime thing is visible. Why? Because now the shading, now this gradient is happening from purple to transparent. So as we are going towards this side, the thing is becoming transparent, and towards the right it has become completely transparent. When the gradient is becoming transparent, what is visible? The background is visible, and that's why lime is visible. And if there was no background, then obviously only white will be there, and that's why nothing much will be visible, just white will be visible from background towards the end. So that is what actually happening. Now if I use the second image here, if I use the second image here, then what will happen? See, firstly it will put HTML5, that is fine. On top of this it will put this linear gradient, and now this linear gradient supports transparent, like there is one layer, right part of the layer is transparent, right? And that's why you will see that this image will be starting to be visible towards the right, you see. So this side it is not much visible, and as we are going towards right, the transparency is increasing because it is a gradient, and towards the complete right, the transparency is complete transparent, and that's why completely this image is visible. Understand that fine. We could have done using other ways also. So for example, rather than using a completely transparent color, we could have used some color which is transparent. So let's say we use a color which is, let's say, green, and we will use RGB, and let's say we will use 0 to 55 0, and it will be let's say 50% transparent. And see, if it would not be 50% transparent, if it would have been 1, then it would be a solid color. See, but and similarly here I could have given, let's say, for simplicity, let's take a red so that we can easily write the code. So 255 and 0, 0, and I have not given any transparency. I have not given any transparency means what? Means it is always 1. If you don't give any transparency, then it is a solid color, which means that opacity is full, which means that opacity is 1, right? So red to green, this is happening. However, if I give transparency in both of them, let's say 0.5 here also and 0.5 here also, then I can see that this whole thing, red to green, this whole thing has become transparent, right? Which let's make it slightly more opaque. So let's make it 0.6 and 0.6. So you can see that this thing red to green is happening. But if I now use another image along with this, so let's, instead of this, I put a comma and then I am using another image. Then since this is supporting, if this would have been 1 and 1 or not use at all, then this whole linear gradient will be a very solid one and this image will not be visible at all. But now, since this whole image, linear gradient part is supporting transparency, now the whole image of HTML5 will be visible from the background. So now you understand, this shade is on top of image, but still the background is visible because the shade of linear gradient is supporting the transparency layer in that. Okay. So long way of saying that linear gradient supports transparency, and you can use transparent colors in any ways, and you can stack them on top of each other, and that will work fine. First, specified gradient or image will be visible on top. We mentioned that whatever is mentioned first, that will be on the top, and as we go down, that will be going towards the bottom. Okay. Next we will see something called radial gradient. And radial gradient is given by a function called radial gradient, which is very similar to linear gradient, except for the fact that rather than doing it in a linear direction, let's say from left to right or top to bottom, it has a point. It has a point, central point somewhere, and then it radiates out from there. Okay, the syntax is radial gradient, like linear gradient, we have radial gradient, and then we are having at least 2 color stops, exactly like linear gradient. So we can give it an example. So something like rather than linear gradient, right, we are using rather than using linear gradient, we are using radial gradient. Okay, and this radial gradient is what? This radial gradient has to be a background image, then only it will work, right? So we are going to have a background image radial gradient with let's say purple to, as we discussed last time, purple to, let's say, yellow, and we will see with 3 colors also. Okay, and as we can see that from purple to yellow it is radiating out, right? And you can use more colors also. So let's say you are using purple to red to yellow, or 4-5 colors, whatever you want. So it will go from purple to red to yellow, and it is starting from purple at some center. What center? It is center of width and height. So that thing is actually 50% 50%, which is like 50% from left and 50% from top. 50% from left and 50% from top, that is the default center, which you can change, by giving this syntax. So like linear gradient had 2 syntax, 2 right, 2 top, 2 top right, or degree. Similarly, here we have a syntax called at. at, and then after that you can write two percentages. The first percentage will be meaning that how much percent from left, and second percent will be meaning how much percent from right. So let's say for simplicity again we have two colors, and here we are having at, let's say 75% from top and 75% from left and 20% from top. Okay, and you see that 75% from left and 20% from top. So this part, this top right part almost, is the center, and you can change this whatever you want, right? So you want like 15% from left, then it will be like something like here. You see the center has shifted. So now you can understand that using at syntax you can specify the center of this emanating point or radial gradient. Okay. Radial color stops can be positioned in a manner similar to what earlier. So from this point of on time, I will not discuss whole in detail because I have already done that in detail for linear gradient. Everything apart from this is same, which means that you can put more than two color stops. You can have percentages, 1% for exactly the where the color should lie. You can write two percentages in each colors to say that from what point to what point it should be solid, and you can again make that those percentages same if you want don't want gradient, you want solid boundaries. So in that case here we can have the effect of like complete like spirals. So those kind of effects we can create, right? And you can try those. So apart from these very basic differences, rest everything is almost same to linear gradient, and you can try that out.